you can even be not white and get access to a white space and get some of that stability, right? And so that is why you see white people in certain situations become so wild. Let's say a school district, some schools have become overcrowded and some have become undercrowded. And so the school district is like, oh, we got to redraw the school boundaries so we're not putting so many students into this crowded school and we can get more students into the undercrowded school. And anytime that happens, there will be a meeting, there will be a hearing, and a lot of white people will show up and they'll be very upset about this. They may say this is not about more black students coming into our school. It might be, I don't want my student to have to switch schools, but you are messing with their stability, and the stability that comes in a school that is disproportionately resourced, has a higher income student body. Same thing, if it's not school boundaries changing, if you try to bring some low income or affordable housing into an overwhelmingly white community, they start freaking about their stability, the character of the neighborhood. And they will show up and they will call their elected officials and they will get affordable housing shut down. It's happened plenty of times around here in the last 10 years. So a lot of one of the benefits of whiteness is this sort of stability and this ability to kind of draw on laws and elected officials and the institutions that kind of like reinforce your boundaries to keep the stability where you are and the instability elsewhere. I remember about 7 years ago, somebody wrote a blog post from Patterson Park, which is a fairly white neighborhood in southeast Baltimore. There had been some terrible crimes. A woman had been killed in her home during a burglary. Guy had his teeth knocked out with a brick in the park. And a white woman wrote this essay like, Baltimore, you're breaking my heart. I have to worry about walking through the park even during the daytime. There's all this crime, which, okay, like all this stuff's happening around you. It's understandable that you're like, why this is a big problem, why aren't we solving it? But she said, I just wish the police would come in here and sweep this stuff out of here. I wish that, basically she was arguing for zero tolerance policing, which Baltimore tried, and all it did was like lock people up for no reason, and black people. And so I wrote an essay saying like, that stuff that happened is horrible, but there is, like, look at the data, look at the maps, like you live in a veritable island compared to other neighborhoods with crime. Where do you want the police to sweep it? Do you think the people in those neighborhoods want it swept out of your neighborhood into theirs? You know what I mean? She was arguing, she was trying to draw the resources of the state to create more stability for herself. It's the same reason, like you see all these people call them Karens or whatever, white people call them 911 over silly stuff. White people treat 911 like room service, like they're calling room service. They want to be more comfortable. They want to feel more stable. So even if it's something that's not illegal, they know that the power of the state is right there in their hands. It's such a big difference from like, this dude's actually trying to do something to me, and you want to call the cops, to like the woman that called on the black guy who was birding, who was watching birds in Central Park. It's just like she was feeling uncomfortable, unstable, and that power of the state is right there for her. That's whiteness in a nutshell. It's it reinforces the way that wealth flows into white communities. It even without I don't know if the majority of elected officials in Baltimore are even white, but I know that the majority of campaign donations are. And I know that close to a majority of campaign donations come from outside the city. So white interests are represented in a black city. It has so many ways of reinforcing itself, and if you just leave things on autopilot, that is the outcomes that it will generate. If you try to reorient bureaucracies, reorient systems toward equity, toward racial justice, things can get a little better. But when you try to do that, there is a big, big backlash. They tried to redistrict schools in Howard County, which is a comparatively progressive county just outside of Baltimore, a very wealthy place. Their schools got overcrowded and undercrowded, and the superintendent was like, I'm going to redraw the school boundaries to even up these schools. But then he was like, while I'm at it, I'm going to do it in such a way that no school has more than 40% poor students, which, of course, in America translates to basically desegregating by race, because race and income are so tied up. So he was going to redraw the school boundaries to even out the schools, per se economically, but also, de facto racially. And people went nuts in this like blue county. White people kind of went crazy because they didn't want the schools to change. So there are just ways that people have of getting institutions to institutionalize their prejudices. They know that they can count on their county council person to vote against the low-income housing if they make enough noise, even if the county council person thinks their district needs more affordable housing. That is, there are so many ways that whiteness works in America, but the outcome is always the same. It's always inequality. It's always police brutality. That's just the way it works. And the question I keep asking implicitly in my book especially is just, what is the obligation of the white person for whom this region was segregated? All the way from redlining to blockbusting to exclusionary housing to whatever's going on, it is all to the benefit of whiteness. It is all to keep wealth following whiteness. What is the obligation of these white people in this region? To disrupt that system and make it generate justice and equity. We're very far from answering that question. I hope that some of the momentum keeps up from last summer after George Floyd was murdered. But when it comes to sacrificing wealth and power and privilege, when it comes to instability, when that instability pops up, that is when the white angel on white people's shoulders is saying, "You sure you want to do this?" And oftentimes the answer is, well, maybe not right now.
Well, let me hear you say mountain, mountain, mountain. No